Hello. I am Rispwind, and welcome to the very first development update, or developer update, or dev update, or whatever you want to call it, for Interealms 3, the big sequel to Interealms 2, which is a project that I showed off a while back on my channel, but didn't give you folks a lot of information on outside of character preview like videos. So this series is going to basically be your key to your look into the development chair, where I'm sitting and working on this large, ambitious project. So before we get into this, I wanted to give that information. If that sounds interesting to you, this series is for you. This is going to give you more insight into the development process here and what I'm working on. So, to get into things, and I'm going to show footage and everything, like I'm going to show stuff like that. Let's talk about development so far. Uh, Development started actually right at the end of May. I know it's June 12th. Development started at the end of May, and I've already, got some stuff to show off. Uh, a lot of things changed over the course of development already. Um, my big vision, however, was always I want to make Interealms 2, but more visually impressive. I think there should be a picture popping up of like my early test. Uh, Additionally, I wanted to ensure that the interface was, more useful than that of Interealms 2. The Interealms 2 interface was, I felt, not the best. It also utilized a little pane thing, right? That like it showed a render texture of the player character, but it didn't have the post-processing effects and everything that you would normally see from the main camera view, so it looked a little weird in the transition. That has been remedied with my idea for the new user interface. For Interealms 3, I wanted to have the interface instead of, taking up the whole screen and having you kind of in a little pocket. You now are in the center of all the information so that you are, because you are at the core, I want your character to be at the center of what's going on, right? Uh, Now the new interface has gone through a number of variations. I obviously just showed you the finalized version, but I'll throw up some images of, experimental stuff for it, and tests of kind of different configurations and all of that. Uh, Stuff that changes throughout development. Um, and it'll probably change again, but the general concept here is, well, what you're seeing. Additionally, another thing I really wanted to focus on for this kind of sequel is just the visual aspect of things, right? In Interealms 2, there was a massive issue, and this is entirely my fault because I was struggling with animations. You may have noticed in the old character previews that there was no transition in the animations for characters. So it would just snap between animations with no transitional period. That was one of the first things I wanted to nail down for Interealms 3. And I can show you all that it is fixed. There are now transitions for animations, and it makes things so much nicer. Um, Another big thing with, the visual department is obviously environments and lighting and stuff. I am using the same lighting engine kind of back end that I used. It's a delightful thing. I'm not going to go too much into that, but the lighting is mostly the same, but I am using the URP now instead of the built-in RP. And what that is, if you're not familiar with Unity, is basically there are three tiers of quote unquote resource packs. There's the built-in resource pack, there's the URP, which has a lot more features, and then the HDRP, which is basically what you would use if you're trying to make like a big AAA game with ray tracing and all of that. So I'm in the middle ground, whereas with Interealms 1, it was the built-in resource pack. So there are a lot more features graphically available to me now, and we are going to go into that. Fun fact, because of the environmental updates, you may have noticed, the environments look a little more detailed now. Some of them, obviously, due to the nature of this game. There's going to be some very detailed environments and some that are more low quality because, obviously, that's the style of that environment due to the crossover nature of the project, right? In cases like that, obviously it's not going to. The feature I'm going to talk about right now is not really built for that. It's built for these more detailed environments, like what I'm doing the initial character previews in, which is I have integrated DLSS. It is entirely optional. You can turn it on and off. Like pretty much all of my playtesting, I have it off. And in all of the videos I do covering the game, it's off. It's literally just there as like a preventative if things get rough. So it's a fun little thing. It might help some people with lower end machines run the game a little better, when I eventually release this, whenever that'll be, which might be years from now because, of course, due to the nature of it being a crossover game, like I can't just have it as like a thing I'm continuously updating. I probably will have to drop it all at once and then just leave it be, you know. So assuming a release does happen and this doesn't end up just being like a project that, you all can follow along with, um, yeah, DLSS is available and will hopefully bring you all some better performance. It's great. Um, I'm also hoping to expand into other upscaling technologies, because obviously DLSS is NVIDIA exclusive. So all of that is in my consideration. Uh, I playtest all of my game projects across three different devices. My main rig, which is what I'm recording on and what I program on and all of that, and then I do my, well, all of that. Everything's done on that. I then have a school laptop for university that I, take down to the university with me and stuff. And then I have a Steam Deck, the original 512 gigabyte model, not the OLED. So I always playtest my projects on all three of these devices to give me, a better sense of performance across different, specs. Obviously, my main rig has an RTX card and 32 gigabytes of RAM and all of this stuff. So having access to those, you know, a more medium tier device like the Steam Deck and then a lower tier device, that helps. Uh, Outside of talking about the visual department there, I also want to briefly talk about my my big goal here for the project. Interealms 3 is obviously the culmination of everything I was trying to do with Interealms 1 and 2. Uh, I've also, kind of said that this is going to be I've told myself that this is going to be my last big, you know, crossover project like this, or just big fan game for probably forever because, I am, getting closer and closer to eventually graduating university and going into my field for programming and all of that, and it's going to, be one of those things where it makes it a little weird to set time aside for something like this, especially like an Interealms 4. down the line. I don't know. That's all, to be determined. But I want to, I am developing this with it in mind that this will most likely be my last project like this. And because of that, I want to make it the best it can possibly be. And that's going to involve me going back and, improving things throughout the development process. So you might see character preview videos for the same character multiple times. That happened with Interealms 2, because I did a bit of a visual improvement. I also got access to a 1440p monitor, which allowed me to do higher resolution clips. I can't do that with Interealms 3 at the moment. They've been at 1080p specifically because the environments are too powerful to run at 1440p at a decent frame rate for such a showcase without DLSS, and I don't want to use DLSS for that. So I've been running it at 1080p. But yeah, that is my goal. I want to make this the best project it can possibly be, with the assumption that it'll be my last Interealms project. With that said, I want to give one last little preview, because our next development update, I already know what it's probably going to be, and it's going to heavily depend on how things go tomorrow as of when I'm recording this, and probably as of when I'm uploading this, but I'm not too sure because it's 10:19 p.m. and it might go up the next day, but like at, like 1 in the morning, I don't know. But I want to show a little thing to kind of, just as a goofy little thing. This isn't Interealms 2. This is our dear friend Springtrap. We love Springtrap. Springtrap is the villain of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. But you may know that Dead by Daylight is receiving a Five Nights at Freddy's expansion, and with that came a new Springtrap model. And I have implemented that new model into Interealms 3. So here's Interealms 3's Springtrap. Just thought that was a fun little thing to share. So, with all of that, that concludes our very first dev update for Interealms 3. I hope you all found this to be informative and fun, and if you want to see me continue doing videos like this, dev updates, please consider leaving a like on the video and commenting. I also would love to hear what you folks want to see in this project, because like I said, I'm only like 2 weeks into development. Like, right now, my big goal is to kind of get it back, in feature parity with Interealms 2. There's like 8 playable characters at the moment, and Interealms 2 had like 600 when development ended. So, kind of having to catch up a bit, but all of that said, hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any fun feedback or, suggestions, let me know, and I will see you all in my next dev update. Right after this video, I'm going to be putting up a new character preview with the Mimic, its appearance from Ruin, from Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin, is kind of a celebration for Secret of the Mimic coming out. Like less than 12 hours from when I'm recording this. So that's fun. Um, Speaking of Secret of the Mimic, you'll have to wait and see what I've got planned, because that's going to heavily depend on how my file ripping journey goes. See you all next time. Farewell.